address for the President of Turkey in New York not too long ago. Please let us all welcome Imam Siraj.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. Ashhadu anna Mohamedan abduhu wa rasuluh. Brothers and sisters, the last 2 weeks I've been praying to Allah Almighty to make this conference a great success. I asked Allah to help me to articulate in my mind, on my tongue was in my mind, and all the speakers. In the 1980s in New York City, we had a mayor called Mayor Koch. I knew him all the time. We'd be in the studio together, and he asked me a question that he asked everyone. He said, Imam Siraj, how are you doing? And I think that is a fair question. Every imam, every director of school, heads of organization must ask the question, how are you doing? And I would suggest this afternoon that we ought to be concerned about 4 things. Number 1, ourselves. Nafsi. How am I doing compared to years ago? Am I getting closer to Allah further from Him? I was at Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C. at the U.S. Air, sitting at my gate during the month of Ramadan, and I'm sitting reading the Quran, and a man comes next to me and said, is that the Quran you're reading? I said, yes, sir. He said, I used to read the Quran. He said, is this the month of Ramadan? I said, yes. He said, are you fasting? I said, yes. He said, I used to fast. And then he said, I used to be a Muslim. So I closed my Quran and I began to talk to him. I asked him the question, what happened? He said, I became angry with Allah. So we spoke and we spoke until they announced that my flight was ready to take off. And I got up and said, sir, I have to go now. My flight is about to take off. He said, I work here and that plane won't move until I tell it to move. Sit down. I said, yes, sir. And I sat down. Why? Because I knew he needed to talk to someone. And we spoke until it was time for me to go. I feel Allah knows best. That day he came back to Allah. Allah knows best. So number 1, we have to be concerned about ourselves. Are we better off now than we were years ago? Number 2, our family. It's not good enough just to be concerned about yourself, but your family, your wife, your children, your grandchildren. How are they doing? Number 3, the ummah. The Prophet ﷺ raised his hand and said, Allahumma ummati, ummati wa baka. Oh Allah, my ummah. And he began to cry. And Allah told Jibril, Idhab ila Muhammad fa as'alhu ma yukika. Go down and ask Muhammad, why is he crying? And he's crying because of the ummah. Are you crying because of the ummah? Are you crying because of the Muslims in Kashmir, the Muslims in Yemen, the Muslims in Syria? Are you crying about the Muslims in Palestine? Are you crying about the Muslims in China? Are you crying about the Muslims in Burma? You have to be concerned about the ummah. Number 1, ourselves. Number 2, our family. Number 3, the ummah. Number 4, and this is the one many of us miss. We must be concerned about the people, the non-Muslims in society, and let me tell you why. All you got to do is go back. And the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, that said that Allah will call Noah and his people on Yawm al-Qiyamah and ask Noah, did you deliver the message? He said, yes. And Allah will ask the people, did he deliver the message? And they will say, no one came to us. And then Allah will say to Noah alayhi salatu wasalam, who will be a witness for you? He said, Mohamed wa ummatahu. Mohammed and his ummah, and we will bear witness for him. So we have to be concerned about the people. Presidential candidate Bernie Sanders recently had a heart attack. And he said, and I never forget this on an interview at CNN, he said, I should have paid more attention to my symptoms. I should have paid more attention to my symptoms. Now, I don't know about you, I have the most positive doctor in the world. Whenever I go see him, I say, Mr. Wahhaj, your heart is good. Your blood pressure is good. Everything is good. And he makes me feel real good. Wallahi, I can't wait to go see him once a year. But I don't know if you're like me. I'm like this, doctor, give it to me straight. Do you want me to say how good you are or give it to you straight? You want it straight? I was in Atlanta, Georgia a couple years ago and ran into a Dr. Niazi, cardiologist. And when he saw me, he was agitated. He said, Imam Siraj, we have 3 enemies. We have 3 enemies. And I'm going to tell you 2. I'm not going to tell you the 3rd one unless you ask me later on. He said, number 1, sugar. Sugar is our enemy. And by the way, anybody here from Sudan? The Sudanese, they never put sugar in their coffee. They put coffee in their sugar. So we got to watch out for sugar. Number 2, salt. You can have sugar, you can have salt, but not too many. The 3rd one I'm not going to tell you until you ask me later. So, this conference, great theme. I pray Allah the Almighty that you don't leave this conference the same way you came in. Don't get it wrong. Allah is concerned about everybody. And the very least, for instance, the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, said, Al-mu'minu qawiyyu khayrun wa habbu ilallah min al-mu'mini da'if wa fi kullin khayrun. Strong believers better, more loved by Allah than a weak believer, but there's good in all of them. Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, talked about the last person that will go to Jannah. Yes, when you ask Allah, ask him for Firdaus. Yes, ask him for the greatest part. So I'm going to suggest in the next few minutes, what is our condition? You see, it's not good enough just to be mubashir, give up good news, but you have to be nadir. You have to be a warner. Because if you don't warn the people, you don't tell the people, you're not honest, how am I doing? In order to answer the question, how am I doing, we have to take a critical look at ourselves. I'm from New York City. Alhamdulillah, we have 35 full-time Muslim schools in New York City. 5,001 school buildings, public school buildings. Every year during the Eid prayer, they close. That's good. According to Columbia University, 10% of the children going to public school in New York City are Muslims. So that's good. But the problem is, 35% of the Muslim children go to public school. What are they learning? Are their values being undercut? So we have to ask ourselves the question, how are we doing? Dr. Ahmed Saqr, rahimahullah, good friend of mine who passed, told me that, Imam, when I came from Lebanon, I came to Chicago, he said, I never forget, the first Eid, we had 3 people in Chicago for Eid. I don't know if you heard about Birmingham, UK. Last year during the Eid in a park, they had 140,000 Muslims praying Eid prayer in the park. Now all over in America, Muslims all over, the numbers are increasing. And let me tell you something about Muslims. Muslims have children. Can I share some information with you? Somebody give me any Muslim country. Any Muslim country? Huh? Algeria, good. Pakistan. How many from Pakistan? I love you. Population of Pakistan, 204,267,000. By 2050, it will be 344,170,000. Bangladesh, population 183,159,000. By 2050, 265,432,000. How about Turkey? MashaAllah. Population Turkey, 79,004,000. By 2050, 98,818,000. So our population of Muslims is growing all over the place. If you look at the Muslims in America right now, the Muslims are growing in population. Muslims in political office. And I really believe this, and I'm not trying to make you feel good. I think that one day, for sure, in America, we'll have a Muslim president of the United States of America. I believe that. I really do. Because we're growing. Muslim doctors, Muslim professions, Muslim athletes, all of that is good. But the question remains, how are we? How are we doing? How many of you heard of Arnold Toynbee? Arnold Toynbee is the greatest historian of our modern time. I told you a few minutes ago that we have to be concerned about the people, the non-Muslims in the society. I told you that. Arnold Toynbee said, of the 22 civilizations that appeared, 19 of them collapsed when they reached the moral state that the United States is in now. We have to ask the question, what are we going to do about our country? Because the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, gave us a picture of good people and bad people in a boat. He said if the good people hold the hand of the bad people, they will save them and save themselves. If they ignore them, they will destroy them and themselves. Allah reminds us in Quran, وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. Do not be like those who forgot Allah. I'm watching two people. All over America, when I go, I watch the masjids, I look at the community, and I've made this conclusion that there are two things that show the health of a Muslim community. Two things. Number one, youth. When you go to the masjid and you no longer see the youth, then you know that that masjid is dying. And Detroit, I did a program for the oldest masjid in Detroit. The oldest masjid has two meanings. Number one, it means the first masjid in Detroit, and that masjid, the first masjid. But it also means this: the people in the masjid are old. They call this masjid the geriatric masjid. The average age of the worshipers in that masjid, 80 years old. We're the youth. And so we have to make sure that we are concerned about the youth, have youth directors and youth programs, because if you don't have the youth, your masjid is dying. And all the prophets were concerned about those coming after them. Yaqub said, what will you worship after me? I'm not just concerned about me, I'm concerned about my children and my grandchildren and my great-great-grandchildren. We must be concerned and must be concerned about the people. Number two, some of you may not agree with this, But if you study the companions of the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, you will learn that one of the greatest signs of the health of a community is the converts or reverts. Go look at those who followed the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon them, upon them. Almost all of them converts or reverts. And when we have in the masjid, not going out, not giving dawah, not calling the people, not being examples to the people, then the society die. And then you will find out that those ills of the society, if we don't take care of them, soon they'll be in the masjid. So brothers and sisters, I close with this. I want to read something to you. And I bet you cannot tell me who said this. Listen carefully. I quote, "Added to this internal confidence was the fact that Muslims enjoyed outstanding success during their first 6 or so centuries. To be a Muslim meant to belong to a winning civilization. This pattern of success started right at the beginning in AD 622. Mohamed fled Mecca as a refugee, then returned there in 630 as its ruler. By the year 715, Muslim conquerors had assembled an empire that reached Spain in the west and India in the east. Muslims boasted some of the most powerful armies, the highest standards of living, the best health, the most impressive rates of literacy, and the most impressive scientific and technical advances. In the words of Martin Kramer, an historian who said, had there been Nobel Prizes in 1,000, they would have gone almost exclusively to the Muslims." You have any idea who said this? This statement that I just made, do you have any idea who said that? A man named Daniel Pipes. Look up Daniel Pipes, one of the adversaries of Islam, but yet he admitted it. And now the question is, will we get back to that? Get back to our roots, get back to the Islam. I'll ask you a question. You know, all the youngsters, raise your hand. You know, before I became Muslim, I used to listen to a lot of music. I'm going to introduce you to 2 singers, 2 groups, one called the Supremes. I don't know if you ever heard of Diana Ross and the Supremes, and the Temptations. And they sang a song, and would you like for me to sing it to you? Not going to happen. But the song went something like this. I'm gonna make you love me. I can almost hear it now. I'm gonna make you love me. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. Is it possible to make people love you? No. Study Mughith, radiallahu anhu, a slave, a black slave, was in love with Barira. He would run after her down the street of Medina crying, but she didn't want him. She was freed. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, why don't you go back to him? She said, are you ordering me? He said, no. She said, I have no use of him. You can't make people love you. But, can you make Allah love you? Absolutely. I give you 2 proofs. The Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِ يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Say, if you really love Allah, follow me, Muhammad Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, follow his sunnah, be like him, Allah will love you. So all you got to do. And look at the dua of Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam. Oh Allah, inni as'aluka min hubbika. I ask you for your love and the love of those who love you, and a deed that will make you love me. And did not the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, said, Ahabu salat ilallah salatu Dawood, Wahabu siyam ilallah siyamu Dawood. The most beloved prayer to Allah is the prayer of David, and the most beloved fast to Allah is the fast of David. Do good deeds, Allah will love you. May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum.